Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be looking at Scott Anderson's book, Think Like a Billionaire, Become a Billionaire.
Yeah.
And, I think it's something that's interesting for all of us to look at, even if we're not, aspiring to have $1 billion. There's a lot of fascinating mindsets and strategies in there that I think we can all
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like they're playing a different game, and it's not just about like getting more money. It's
Right.
like, how do you change the rules of the game?
Yeah. What makes their game board different?
Yeah.
So Anderson talks a lot about, billionaires seeing money as a tool, not just a thing for spending, but what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah. Well, I think you can think about it like a chess player, A chess player is not trying to just capture pieces. They're thinking a couple moves ahead. And I think billionaires think of every dollar as having potential energy. Like, they're not going to go buy a depreciating asset like a fancy car. They would rather put that money into something that's going to generate more money, whether that be real estate or a business or even a rare stamp collection, as long as it's going to appreciate in value.
So it's not just about having money, it's about having money that is
Yes.
working for you.
That's exactly right. It's a very proactive approach.
Yeah.
And, they view their jobs as not being the end goal, but just the fuel for their investment engine. They're prioritizing learning about investing almost like it's a second job, and they're constantly seeking ways to multiply their wealth.
So it's like they're building a system, not just, relying on a paycheck. But that takes some serious discipline.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's where Anderson brings in the idea of vision and commitment. And, billionaires often have a crystal clear picture of what their financial future looks like. And that drives their self-control. It's not just about, resisting that latte today. It's about having the discipline to stick to a long-term plan.
He even suggests writing yourself a check for your net worth goal. I mean, I get the visualization aspect,
It's
but
a little out there.
a check.
Yeah.
It does seem a little.
But these are the people that build rockets to space,
Okay.
because they think it would be cool. There's something to be said about that unwavering belief in their vision.
Okay, so they're disciplined and visionary. But Anderson also talks about giving, which feels counterintuitive, right? For folks who are so focused on building wealth.
It's not about giving all your money away. It's about understanding this principle of sowing and reaping, even beyond finances. And they see strategic giving, whether it be charitable giving or giving in business, as a way to ultimately multiply their impact and their resources.
He uses the biblical example of the woman with the oil, right?
Yeah.
Where her small amount miraculously multiplies as she gives it away.
That's right. That's right. Now, I'm not saying that every donation is going to lead to some windfall, but the underlying principle is really interesting. This idea that generosity isn't about depletion. It's about creating flow and opening yourself up to new opportunities. And I think billionaires really grasp this concept in a way that most people don't.
So they're not hoarding wealth.
Yeah.
They're actively looking for ways to leverage it for greater impact.
Yes.
That's fascinating. Okay, so that leads us to another key aspect, I think, of the billionaire mindset, this idea of calculated risk-taking. These folks aren't afraid of failure. They see it as part of the learning process. Anderson tells a story about buying a property that he initially thought was too expensive. He kind of pushed past his comfort zone and saw the potential, ended up making a big profit. Is that typical of how billionaires approach risk?
I think so. They understand this law of probability. They know that if they keep making smart bets, even if some of them fail, the odds will eventually tilt in their favor. And it's not about getting lucky. It's about creating their own luck by putting themselves in the game.
It's like learning a new language, as Anderson puts it.
Yeah.
Once you understand the rules of the game, a whole world of opportunity opens up.
That's right. And it brings us to specific business strategies that billionaires use to beat the odds. And one that I think stands out is what he calls the chimichanga example.
Yeah.
And this really highlights how they approach minimizing their risk while also maximizing the potential.
Let's unpack that a little bit. Because I think a lot of people have this idea of going all in on their dream business right away.
Right.
But this is suggesting a completely different approach.
Yeah, instead of pouring all of your life savings into, a flashy restaurant.
Yeah.
Imagine starting with just a small food stall. You test your menu, you build up a loyal customer base, and you gradually scale up using the profits that you're generating. It's about minimizing those potential losses while maximizing the chances of success.
So it's a much more strategic and calculated approach to
Absolutely.
entrepreneurship. And not just chasing a dream, but building solid foundation first.
Yeah, and this ties back to that idea of seeing money as a tool. Every dollar that's earned from that food stall isn't just personal income. It's fuel to grow the business. It's fuel to invest in new equipment or expand the menu or eventually open that dream restaurant, but from a much more stable footing.
Okay, so we've got money as a tool, long-term vision, strategic giving, calculated risk-taking. Are we starting to see a pattern here?
Yeah, I think so. And it leads us to another crucial aspect of the billionaire mindset, one that often makes people uncomfortable.
Okay.
The world of debt and credit.
Ooh, debt.
Yeah.
That's a scary word.
Yeah, it can be.
For a lot of people. But Anderson presents a different perspective, doesn't he?
He does. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of this deep dive.
Okay, I'm bracing myself for this debt conversation because that's something I know I could be better at.
It's one of those topics that I think is often shrouded in fear and misunderstanding.
Yeah.
But Anderson breaks it down in a way that I think is really empowering. He argues that billionaires see debt differently.
Okay.
They distinguish between good debt and bad debt.
Remind me again what the difference is, because honestly, debt just feels like debt to me.
Well, think of it this way. Good debt is like a power tool. You know, it helps you build something bigger and better. It's an investment that's going to generate income or appreciate in value, exceeding the cost of the interest that you're paying. So like taking out a loan to buy a rental property or investing in your education to increase your earning potential.
So it's about using debt strategically as leverage to create more wealth.
Yeah.
And bad debt is
the kind of debt that just keeps you stuck in that cycle of payments without any real return. You know, credit card debt for impulsive purchases or loans for things that are quickly going to lose value.
Right.
That's the stuff that drains your resources and keeps you from reaching your financial goals.
Anderson tells a story about refinancing his house and taking on more debt, which sounds scary.
Yeah.
But he used that money to invest in something that yielded a much higher return.
Yeah.
So that's
a bold move.
Pretty bold move.
But that's the key difference. You know, he wasn't increasing his debt to buy, you know, a fancy car or go on vacation. He was strategically using debt to fuel investments that were going to generate long-term wealth.
Yeah. He also emphasizes the importance of a good credit score.
Yes.
I know that's important, but I don't think I really internalized like the lifetime cost of having bad credit.
It's significant. It affects everything from the interest rates that you're going to pay on loans and mortgages to your insurance premiums, even your ability to rent an apartment. You know, Anderson really drives home this point that building good credit is a crucial part of setting yourself up for financial success.
Okay, it's a good reminder to check my credit score. Now, shifting gears a bit, there was a chapter that really grabbed my attention, which was the one about time management and the millionaire's mindset.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's recognizing that time is your most valuable asset, even more so than money. And I think billionaires understand this, and they're fiercely protective of their time.
I love that he suggests we visualize our time using 2 jars.
Yeah.
One for wasted time and one for dream time.
Oh, yeah.
I think if we actually tracked where our time goes, it'd be pretty eye-opening.
It's a brilliant exercise. And it forces you to really confront how you're actually spending your days and whether those actions are aligned with your goals. And it connects back to this question that Anderson asks, could someone be stealing your water? Now, he's not talking about literal water. Of course, he's talking about your potential, your energy.
Right.
Are you allowing distractions and energy vampires to drain your time and resources?
That's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
It makes you think about who and what might be holding you back.
Yeah, exactly. It's about becoming aware of how you're spending your time and making those conscious choices that are going to move you closer to your goals.
And this ties into another crucial aspect of the billionaire mindset that Anderson highlights, which is excellence and integrity.
Yeah.
So we've talked about money as a tool, taking calculated risks, leveraging debt strategically, guarding our time. How do excellence and integrity fit into this equation?
Well, Anderson really sees these qualities as essential for building a reputation that's going to attract opportunities and favor. Think about it. Who would you rather do business with? Someone who is known for cutting corners and being dishonest, or someone with a reputation for excellence and integrity?
Totally.
Yeah.
The latter, for sure. But it feels like sometimes, you know, being nice and doing good work isn't enough to get ahead in the world.
Well, it's not just about being nice. It's about consistently delivering high-quality work. being trustworthy, going above and beyond in everything you do. Anderson argues that this commitment to excellence, even in a job that you might not love, it sets you apart. It makes you a magnet for opportunities.
It's about becoming a problem solver, not a problem avoider.
That's right.
Right.
And it ties back to that idea of attracting wealth and opportunities rather than chasing them. It's about cultivating a mindset, a reputation, and a skill set that makes you someone that people want to invest in.
He uses that hunting analogy again here, right?
Yeah.
Instead of chasing deer, become the hunter that creates an environment that draws deer in.
Yes.
So it's about setting yourself up for success by becoming the kind of person opportunities seek out.
Absolutely. It's about shifting from that scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the final principle that Anderson emphasizes, one that I think ties everything together beautifully, the importance of giving back.
Okay, so we've come full circle. We started with, seeing money as a tool for building wealth. And now we're talking about using that wealth to make a positive impact on the world.
And it's not just about writing big checks to charities. It's about recognizing that true success is measured not just by what you accumulate, but by how you use those resources to make a difference.
It's about aligning your wealth with your values.
Yeah.
And using it as a force for good in the world.
That's right.
But even though I believe in that, it feels overwhelming.
It does.
Where do you start?
That's a great question, and it's one that I think a lot of people struggle with. And it's something that I think we can unpack as we wrap up this deep dive in part 3.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
So we left off talking about giving back and how it can feel kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a big concept, and it's easy to think only rich people can do it.
Right, like you need millions to make a difference.
But Anderson says it's not just about money, it's about using what you have.
Okay. So not just big checks to charities.
Right. It could be volunteering your time, sharing skills, mentoring someone, even just being encouraging,
Being supportive.
Yeah.
I have a friend who started a nonprofit teaching financial literacy in low-income areas. She's not rich, but she's using her knowledge to empower others.
Perfect example. It shows giving back often starts with finding what matters to you. What are you passionate about? What problems do you wish you could solve?
That makes it feel more personal. Less about saving the world all at once, more about finding your own way to contribute.
Exactly. And you'd be surprised what you can offer. Maybe you're organized so you could help a charity with their fundraising. Or maybe you're a good listener so you could volunteer at a crisis line or senior center.
So it's like with investing, we were talking about, be strategic about giving back, too.
Great way to put it. We wouldn't invest blindly, so we can be thoughtful about where our time, energy, and resources go when giving back, too.
Okay, so big picture, think like a billionaire. Has been about money as a tool, long-term vision, calculated risks, excellence, integrity, and now giving back. If we had to sum it up, what's most important for our listener to take away?
I think it's that being a billionaire isn't about the money itself, but the mindset. It's how you approach life to create wealth and success on your terms.
So shifting your view of money, having a long-term plan, taking action, not just with finances, but in everything.
You become an investor, a giver, a risk taker. You master your time, build excellence and integrity, attract opportunities, and use your success to make a positive impact.
So listener, here's the final question for you. What one small change can you make today based on all this to move closer to your definition of success? Doesn't have to be huge. Just one shift in thinking, one action in line with this mindset, and watch what happens.
And keep exploring these ideas. We encourage you to check out the resources we mentioned. Keep diving deep and keep reaching for those dreams.
All right, so we're back and ready to unpack this idea of giving back. We talked about how it can feel overwhelming.
Right, it can. It's easy to think, oh, I don't have enough to really give.
Yeah.
But Anderson says that's not the point.
Okay, so not about being a mega philanthropist with millions to spare.
Exactly. It's more about thinking, what resources do I have that could make a difference?
So time skills.
Yeah.
Even just encouragement, like we mentioned before.
All of that counts. Volunteering, sharing what you're good at, mentoring someone, even just being there for people.
Being that supportive presence.
Yeah.
That reminds me of this story about a guy in Anderson's book. He was a successful entrepreneur, but also volunteered teaching kids computer programming.
Perfect example. He wasn't donating millions, but he was sharing his expertise to open up opportunities for those kids.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
Right? Because it gets at the core of what Anderson's saying. Giving back isn't just about the amount, it's about the impact.
It's like that ripple effect, You throw one little stone in the pond and the rings spread out much wider.
I like that. So maybe instead of thinking, I need to be Bill Gates giving away billions. It's more about where can I make my ripple?
Exactly. And that starts with looking inward. What are you passionate about? What problems do you see around you that bug you that you wish you could fix?
That makes it less intimidating too, right? Because it's not about saving the entire world. It's about finding your own little corner to improve.
And honestly, you might be surprised at the resources you have. Maybe you're great at organizing events, so you volunteer to help a charity with their fundraising, or maybe you're an amazing baker and donate goodies for their bake sale.
So it's about thinking outside the box, not just giving back equals writing a check.
And even if money is involved, it's still about being strategic, just like with those investments we talked about.
Right. We wouldn't throw money at just an A-way investment. We'd research it carefully. So same with giving back.
Exactly. Look into where your money's going. Make sure it aligns with your values, that the organization is effective. Do your due diligence just like you would with any financial decision.
So think like a billionaire. It's not just about the money mindset. It's about applying that strategic thinking to all areas of life.
Giving back included. Absolutely. And, throughout this deep dive, we've covered a lot.
We have money as a tool, long-term vision, taking risks, excellence, integrity. And now this giving back piece, it's a lot to take in.
It is. But if there's one big takeaway I hope people get, it's this. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a whole philosophy.
Yeah, it's about changing how you view the world almost.
Exactly. It's about becoming more proactive, intentional, not just reacting to what life throws at you, but creating your own opportunities.
And that takes work, obviously. No one's saying this is easy.
Yeah, no. But it is possible. And I think the stories in Anderson's book really highlight that these aren't mythical creatures, these billionaires. They're people who made choices, took action, and sometimes messed up, but kept learning.
And that learning piece is key, right? Because it's not about being perfect. It's about constantly striving to improve.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. So for everyone listening out there, what's one thing you can do differently starting today, inspired by all this?
It doesn't have to be huge. Just a tiny shift towards this billionaire mindset, and who knows what amazing things you might achieve.
We're excited to hear about your journeys. So until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, keep giving back, and as always, keep reaching for those dreams.